Hello everyone, Ryan here. Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe by Benjamin Alire. Signs read by Lin Manuel Miranda. I believe I pronounced the names correctly. I mean, I should know since I happen to be Hispanic. So, listen to the audiobook version of this. And I know this first came out quite a while ago. I believe sometime in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And actually, I should note that the author, he is from El Paso, and I'm not sure if he currently still lives in El Paso, Texas. 'Cause I mean, that's currently where I live. And El Paso has been pretty much my hometown for I don't know how long now. 20 years, or like over 20 years. Though originally I'm from California, the LA area, but of course moved here with my family back in the early 90s after the whole LA riots thing happened. And, that's a story for a whole other time. So yeah, the author, Benjamin Alire Signs, from El Paso. And again, yeah, I don't know if he still lives here or not, but a while ago I read another one of his novels. I actually read the physical copy. I want to say it's titled Names on a Map or something like that. And that was the first novel by him that I read. And of course I never reviewed it because I mean it was way before I started my channel, way before I got into Booktube or even YouTube for that matter. But yeah, I remember I thoroughly enjoyed that one. So just like with this, I also thoroughly enjoyed it. I already kind of knew what to expect, but I was also pleasantly surprised by it. And of course, the main characters are obviously Aristotle and Dante, but not the Aristotle and Dante, but rather characters, these two teenage boys who happen to be named Aristotle and Dante. And they forge a friendship, and they hang out with each other and go through all the typical, I guess you could say, teenage stuff. Although eventually, I guess their friendship gets to a point where it starts to evolve, and they obviously they become pretty close, and of course I don't want to give away too much, but if you haven't already read it or listened to the audiobook, oh yeah, and of course I have to mention that the narrator, Lin Manuel Miranda, definitely did a good job with the narration. I mean, he even got down the right kind of accents here and there, and when pronouncing Spanish words, and there were certain moments when he actually reminded me of some of my relatives and how they would react to certain situations, and so it ended up being pretty authentic for me. Of course, I could imagine if you didn't grow up in a Hispanic household or Latino household, you probably won't pick up on these kinds of things, but still, it doesn't take away from the story at all. I just felt like I had to mention that because of the narration, it felt a lot more authentic to me when it came to, again, the accent and how certain characters reacted to certain situations. So, and of course, like much of the story, comes off like your typical YA novel, young adult novel. But then I want to say, towards the halfway point, maybe a little bit past the halfway point, becomes much more complex. Well, I mean, the relationship, friendship between Aristotle and Dante, like I said, it evolves and becomes more complex. And, there's one point where, of course, they spend a whole summer apart from each other. I believe it's a whole summer. And yeah, so because they spend that time apart from each other, they of course discover a lot more about themselves as individuals, and but more so it's more like they learn about the things that they don't like, and the types of people that they don't like, and types of situations that they don't like, and then because of that, then eventually after the summer is over, pretty much after the summer is over, they reunite, and they realize that, I mean, I guess, in no exact terms, I guess, but regardless, they realize that they actually miss each other way more than they thought they did. And of course, Aristotle, or Ari, he's actually like, throughout the whole novel, like he's much more reserved, like much more, I guess you could say, stoic in a way, like much more, he doesn't really like reveal his true emotions right away, whereas Dante is more like, he's much more extroverted. Actually, it is a very interesting character study. There is that aspect of ours. I mean, pretty much the bulk of the novel is a pretty interesting character study between an introverted person and an extroverted person. But at the same time, too, it doesn't come off as too forced or anything like that. At least that's how I felt. And if anything, it kind of reminds me of myself growing up. Like, I mean, just the whole introverted extroverted thing, because I've always been more introverted. Even when I hang out with my close group of friends, but especially in high school, I remember I was actually way more introverted in high school, but I mean, like, there was only certain times, like when I'd be hanging out with my friends, and only then. I mean, even then, like, even though I felt comfortable around my friends, it still took me a while to open up and feel comfortable with even attempting to be just a little bit extroverted. But I mean, I believe that's something that most introverts deal with on a daily basis, or definitely at least a regular basis. So I mean, that whole thing, like I said, introverted, extroverted thing is very prominent throughout this novel, which is definitely one of the many things I liked about it. And I'm trying to think like how much more I can talk about without spoiling anything. All I can really say as far as the friendship concerning Ari and Dante is that, it evolves, and does eventually, it does have a happy ending, but it's, of course, obviously, like I said, they deal with the typical teenage stuff. And they find out what they like, what they don't like. They find out more about themselves as individuals. And, but it's something that I've always felt like is important. I mean, when it comes to teenagers in general, when it comes to people in general, but especially teenagers, because you're going through this awkward time in your life, and you need to have the time. You need to be able to just, figure out who you are as a person, what your dislikes are, what your likes are, and all that. Actually, I feel like it's something that it's one of those themes that is prominent in most young adult novels. But also, too, it seems like, for me, because when compared to other YA novels I've read in the past, I kind of feel like the whole introvert-extrovert thing, like, either it's not taken seriously, or it ends up coming off as, like, too cheesy or too forced, or, I don't know. I'm saying, like, especially when compared to this novel. But then it could just be a testament to the writing prowess of Benjamin Signs. Because it does, like, even though I listened to the audiobook, but it still came off as pretty poetic. Very poetic, in fact. There's certain chapters where when I thought about him, I realized, if, like, all you had to do was rearrange some sentences a couple times, maybe remove one paragraph or two, but other than that, the entire novel could then just be considered an epic poem, like, as, because that's how it came off to me. And actually, I know because, I guess it's because previous novel I read by Benjamin Signs, that one was definitely very poetic. Like, you could tell right away, just from the first chapter, the style he was going for. So this one has that same poetic style. Very similar, but obviously it's not just like straight up poetic. It does have a typical prose kind of stuff, obviously. Ultimately, I definitely enjoyed it. Again, I don't know what else to say about it without spoiling it. It's definitely a happy ending. Although I wouldn't be surprised if some people wouldn't consider it much of a happy ending. I found it to be happy nonetheless. Although I guess I will say, if you're not an open-minded person, or if you're very close-minded, if certain topics shock you, then yeah, obviously I would say it's probably a good chance that you won't like this audiobook or just the physical book itself. But otherwise, I'd say I would highly recommend it to anyone and everyone. If nothing else, I'd definitely recommend it to all teenagers. So, but then again, I kind of feel like a lot of teenagers first off, wouldn't really want to read it or even listen to the audiobook because, they would think that it's not cool to read. But still, I recommend everyone read it or listen to the audiobook. So, yeah. I give it 5 stars all the way, of course. I gotta give it 5 stars. Oh yeah, and of course much of the story, I mean, the bulk of the story takes place in El Paso, Texas. But it's supposed to be set during the 80s, I believe. I don't know exactly the exact time frame, but I want to say early to mid 80s, around that kind of span. Although unfortunately there's no like mention of any exact like local restaurants or anything like that. Just there's mentions of different parts of the city, but other than that, it's just yeah. I mean, I guess the author like didn't want to be forced to get the rights to mention certain restaurants, which is understandable. Or maybe he just didn't want to even attempt that at all. So, yeah, I don't know. But again, that does it for my review. Again, I give it 5 stars all the way. I recommend it to everyone. And that's it. Also, too, if you happen to have also read it or listened to the audiobook, I'd be interested in your thoughts about it. I mean, if you want, leave me a comment. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, next time, don't forget to keep it real, keep on rocking in. Peace.